Thank you, Amin. So before we continue, I just briefly want to give you a chance. Has anybody has any questions about the FUSE program? Great job, Amin. Nobody has any questions, so that's good. It is my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, who is from France, more exactly from Toulouse, France. He's a digestive and visceral surgeon who has spearheaded the FUSE program in France. And France now has a mandate that all surgeons and residents pass the FUSE, take the FUSE module and be knowledgeable. So I have the great personal pleasure to introduce to you Jean-François Gravie, and he will talk to us about OR-fires in France, report of the FUSE France program. Jean-François, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Merci, Pascal.
And if you need this.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to thank the SAGES committee for the invitation and the opportunity for me to talk about the French report on operative room fire. I have nothing to disclose.
Can we advance the slides, please?
That work? Oh, yes. You have nothing to disclose. And so, what you have to remember is that French surgeons commit themselves to a voluntary risk management program in order to obtain certification. And so what is the French report? These surgeons report yearly at least 3 adverse events of their choice in a feedback database. Each adverse event is analyzed, validated, anonymized, and stored in the database by expert surgeons from FCVD. And here you see 98 reports of fire in operating room and an example of the 3 last reported last year in December. But as it was said in a previous session, this data is misleading. None of this data should be considered as epidemiologic value, and there is definitely an underestimated morbidity associated with energy source in operating room. So, after analyzing these reports, we always find the combination of 3 elements: ignition source, fuel source, oxidizer. A large majority of these events are associated with the use of monopolar energy, vapors from alcohol prep and room air in the operating room. 5 of surgical drapes occurs in 10 reports with cold light and in 1 case with tissue sealing device. In other cases, it was a combination of alcohol-based prep, surgical drapes, or pad as energy source. If we look now at the 2 main causes, skin prep, alcohol-based solution, has been a standard practice for skin prep for several years. It's the same standards as in the US. And alcohol-based prep require compliance with safety rules. And here you can see on the right, these rules are displayed in my operating room. Fire hazards exist every day. This is the reason why several alert message from the French Health Authority has been sent to the operating room manager for 5 years. But a recent survey conducted by FCVD showed that less than a third of surgeons knew this alert message. The second main cause, electrosurgery. A vast majority of events were reported after the use of monopolar device, but scarce information about outputs, and on the other hand, electric arc and fulguration were mentioned in 12 reports. If we now look at the characteristic of the reports, the analysis of the FCVD experts often show a combination of active failures and latent conditions. A vast majority of events were reported after incomplete drying because of too much prep solution accumulated under or adjacent to the patients, surgical towels not removed after prep application, incomplete drying under drapes. A file results from the combination of soak positioner, body heat under drapes, heating cover, alcohol fume. Let's see an example that promotes incomplete drying. As adhesive drapes are generally provided with paper towel, with which the team or the surgeon sticks the drapes, only this site dries up completely, leaving 3 sites not completely dry, under the patient, under the drapes, at the umbilicus. Now, our example. Pad and prep solution are not removed from the operation table after application, or not removed after drying and umbilicus still wet. To avoid making errors, the use of a sponge is best for application. Never use surgical pad for drying, prefer paper towel. What's about the root cause of these adverse events? We have identified 2 frequent root causes. First, reckless behavior of the lack of knowledge and or awareness and of safety rules from the OR team. Second, what I call the hurried surgeon syndrome, particularly in circumstances such as a quick prep for a new operative site during the operation. Finally, the key lesson from the ELARM analysis method are usually an uneventful recovery. No serious burns are reported in our database, in majority grade 1 or 2. And second, a dangerous lack of concern, an awareness of hazards, recommendation unknown or not taken into account, a dysfunctional communication within medical team. So what we can say that the FCVD action for risk management of energy source in operating room are first an effort for better communication on the issue by creating a website, by systematically planning fuse French sessions in French Congress, by issuing guidelines with a specific chapter addressing OR5 this year. Second, by boosting education, the fuse France is now mandatory for digestive surgeon certification and now students' education. 5 hazards in the operating room are addressed in Model 2. And third, by planning continuous learning program next year. Before finishing, this slide to remind the exceptional evening yesterday, Pascal. We have heard the fuse song Electrosurgery by the Refusers. And let me now introduce you 2 eminent members of the group, the Refuser. Thank you for your attention.